These conspiracy theories will keep you up at night. There are a plethora of conspiracy theories, especially lately, that have just genuinely been eating away at my brain every single night. I don't know what to do. They're crazy. The first thing I want to talk about, I feel like, is no shock. I see everyone talking about it on TikTok and just across social media in general. And it says there's something seriously off about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So on September 10th of 2025, I'm sure you've all heard, Charlie Kirk, who is a far-right political activist, he was basically doing a Q&A at Utah Valley University when he was assassinated and he passed away. And there have been countless amounts of conspiracy theories coming, and as the information is unfolding, it's currently September 16th while I'm filming this, so this is just a few days ago, and there is so much information still coming out, so keep that in mind. But since it happened, there has been so much speculation, and I have to agree with a lot of it. I feel like if you know me, I obviously don't agree with Charlie Kirk as a human. His videos annoyed me, didn't like the things that he had to say. But since this happened, there is so much rhetoric going around and so many conspiracy theories, and honestly, like, I just feel like we gotta tap in because it's crazy. So basically, a boy named Tyler Robinson has been arrested and is currently in custody for confessing to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't really know. A lot of people believe that he could not have been the one to do it. People show pictures of like the security footage like of the original assassin, and he clearly doesn't have attached earlobes, but Tyler Robinson has attached earlobes. I don't know. Ultimately, he's just some kid from Utah from a Mormon family. This is just kind of irrelevant to the purpose here, but of course each side is trying to blame the other side for this assassination happening. Like, Democrats are trying to say that he's a Republican, Republicans are trying to say that he's a Democrat. We don't really know anything other than that he grew up in a conservative Mormon family, and he's apolitical, and he's like registered as apolitical, no affiliation, and hasn't voted in the last 2 elections, and he's crazy. That's all you need to know, is that he's crazy. I don't know why we're pointing fingers, but regardless, a lot of people don't even care about this person because they think he is a fall guy. He is just someone who they're saying did this, when in reality it was the government. And there's like a lot of theories about this. So we're gonna go into the first theory, which is some of the things that were weird about the actual assassination here. For one, there's 2 people behind Charlie right before it happens, where one guy in a white hat is like touching his hat and then tugging on his ear in a weird way, and then a man in black who appears to be one of Charlie's security guards is standing right behind him, and he does like this really weird hand gesture right before it happened as well. And a lot of people suspect that this proves that Tyler Robinson was not acting alone, which right now in this current moment he apparently was. But a lot of people are not believing the story that the FBI is feeding. For one, a lot of people from the beginning have been questioning whether or not this assassination was carried out by a professional person who obviously knew his way around a gun and obviously was able to assassinate someone from 200 yards away. The person clearly knew what they were doing around guns, but to be fair, Tyler Robinson is familiar with guns. He grew up in a gun-loving family, so it's still possible that he was the actual shooter, but a lot of people don't believe it, and let's talk about why. So one conspiracy theory that a lot of people believe is that Tyler Robinson is just a fall guy, and the Trump administration actually orchestrated this entire assassination as a distraction from the Epstein files and from Donald Trump's involvement with them. So Epstein's 50th birthday book had just been released, and there was a really creepy and weird poem from Donald Trump in it. Donald Trump claims that it's not real, but what did we just, someone predicted he would be president one day and just went ahead and wrote that, and then, I don't know, I guess people could think they planted it. I don't know. Personally, I mean, I believe it. Like, I don't know why people are so inclined to not believe that Trump could have been involved with Epstein in any way that's nefarious. I mean, I feel like a lot of people forget things that he has said in his life, like some of the crap that he said about women. Like, some of the things he's said is obviously concerning. So obviously, you all know by now, Trump's administration has been refusing to release the Epstein files, even though Trump ran his entire campaign pretty much on being persistent about the fact that those files needed to be released. But now that he's president, he says there's no files, there's nothing that needs to be released, everything's fine, which obviously people don't believe. So the reason that people believe that this assassination of Charlie Kirk was orchestrated by the Trump administration, it's because, to one, distract us from the Epstein files, and two, Charlie Kirk which is probably one of the only things I agreed with him on, was saying that the files should still be released with no redactions. Like, there should be nothing redacted from those documents and they should still release them. And allegedly, he was pressing Trump to release them publicly, but also privately, and basically getting young people, at least young conservatives, to care about the fact that Epstein files weren't being released, because I feel like a lot of people who cared about it before Trump had access to them really wanted the files to be released. And now that Trump's like, oh, it's fine, they just like believe him like nothing. Like, you're just blindly following someone who's crazy. But either way, Charlie Kirk was getting these young conservatives and people in general to care about these files and to show that even some conservatives still cared about these documents and wanted to see them. And now there's one other thing that's a pretty big deal that Charlie's opinion was changing on. Charlie had always been pro-Israel. His entire career up until a few months ago, he kind of started talking about the wrongdoings of the Israeli government, which is obviously rare for a conservative to do. Candace Owens has also been speaking out about this, and her and Charlie Kirk were apparently really good best friends. I also think they had a crush on each other, but that's just me trying to add a romantic spin. I don't know. And again, Candace Owens, another person that I've pretty much never agreed with, but it kind of seems like they might be waking up to something. And I feel like it's important to talk about that was kind of the journey that Charlie Kirk was on when he was assassinated. So this clip is something that Charlie said before he passed. And again, conservatives have proven to have very big issues with what he's about to say.
But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard right government has a mandate. I gotta be careful the way I say this. They're gonna try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
Yep.
I mean, I don't use that term lightly, okay?
Again, a conservative figure going against Israel is not something that not only obviously the Israeli government doesn't want, but the US government also does not want that. They're very pro-Israel, they always have been. So the fact that Charlie said this, and again, he influences so many young conservatives, and I truly think he was, unfortunately, a big part of why Trump got elected is because of the young voters and people like Charlie Kirk were recruiting. So him saying something that goes so against what the Republicans actually want is definitely going to be raising a red flag, and it did. So Candace Owens, since this happened, has been doing a deep dive into this, and she just does not think at all that this Tyler Robinson kid did anything. I mean, she thinks maybe he was involved because the government paid him to do it, but she truly is without saying it, but also she kind of is saying it, she thinks the Israeli government assassinated Charlie Kirk.
Bibi Netanyahu in that phone call, what took place was a couple of weeks ago before Charlie lost his life. Charlie was in the Hamptons. He had essentially what was staged, an intervention was staged by Bill Ackman, because Charlie's rational thoughts about Israel were a no-no. This is not the route that you should be going on. And Charlie was surrounded by his friends, his quote-unquote friends. Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. He was asked to dispute this narrative. Max Blumenthal went out to him today, and Bill Ackman came back and said, I have receipts I can show you, and he did not provide the receipts. It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say. And I know that Charlie was offered a ton of money in this moment. Turning Point, I guess, if it needed to go to a higher level, would have gone to an even higher level than it already was at. And I know for a fact that Charlie denied that funding, that Charlie denied, and what Bibi didn't include there, he declined to go to Israel for, I would describe this as re-education camp. We've seen it. You made an uh-oh, but we can help you. Another person that was there, and I am not surprised this person was there if you've been listening to my show, Seth Dillon. I said, any comment on this one, Seth? He didn't answer last night. This morning I said, need a comment ASAP, please. He didn't answer. Then I followed that up and I said, trying again here, you were present when Ackman lost his mind on Charlie and when Bibi invited him to Israel and Charlie refused. Text messages immediately following this meeting are circulating. I find Ackman's statement, as though the meeting was somehow cordial, to be incredibly disturbing. Are you at all disturbed by that tweet? Do you feel, as I do, that this tweet significantly betrays the defined purpose and mood of his, and I presume your, final meeting with Charlie Kirk, ? He was unable to speak to me, but he did place some frantic calls to Turning Point USA. Yeah. You see, I went out to Seth, but I also went out to 2 other people who were at this meeting, and nobody is willing to go on record. They're all messaging each other, trying to figure out a coordinated response to say that, no, this was all quite cordial, but no one wants to go on record and describe it as cordial because they know someone's leaking, because someone's got a guilty conscience about what happened at the Hamptons.
So basically, I know that's a lot to take in, but essentially what she's saying is because Charlie Kirk was starting to take a different stance on Israel and was starting to question what Israel is doing in Gaza, the conspiracy theory of it that Candace Owens believes, again, I don't know how much weight you want to put on that, but I will say she probably obviously knows some stuff on the inside. She seems to believe that Israel had involvement with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I don't know. I just feel like this whole thing has been keeping me up at night, like genuinely. I don't know, because I just think something was so off about it. A lot of people are saying that Erica Kirk, Charlie's wife, her speech was very weird. I thought the fact that she spoke 2 days after her husband was brutally assassinated was strange to me, but people grieve in so many different ways. Like, I feel like you can't really call out someone for the way that they are grieving something, because sometimes people have weird reactions. Like, have I ever seen someone lose a partner like that and have that reaction? No, but that doesn't mean that she was like involved or knew anything was happening. I don't know what I believe there. However, I will say that Erica Kirk posting a video of Charlie's casket with his dead hands and she was kissing them, I think that's weird. I think that's an incredibly strange thing to share. That should have been a private moment. It's strange to me that that was shared, but again, I don't think that it necessarily means that she was involved in any way. Also, the whole blueberry tax thing, the blueberry budget, her saying that she told her daughter that her dad is on a trip with Jesus so that he can afford her blueberry tax is so crazy to say. That's actually bananas. I don't know why you would say that to a child, because then they're just gonna be like, well, I don't need to eat fruit. If dad can come back, I don't need to eat fruit. I'm okay. You know what I mean? That's just blaming your child. I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird, I don't know what you would say in that situation, obviously, but the specific words that she said, I just thought was bizarre. But again, this is a grieving widow. I don't know what it's like to be in that situation. God forbid that, obviously, that would be a horrible situation for her. I don't think that she was involved with any of this, but I don't know for sure. Some people think that Charlie Kirk is still alive and this was fake, and the video, obviously, so many of us unfortunately saw was a blood bag and it wasn't real. And I don't know. I don't believe that either, but a lot of people do believe that because of the coloration of his hands in his casket was quite yellow and it looked strange. But also, I don't know, I've heard morticians say both things. I've heard them say that's normal, and I've heard them say they've never seen that before, so it's kind of inconclusive there. But what I will say here is that the Trump administration and Israel both benefited from the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying that they did it, but I'm saying that they'll benefit from it. One, yeah, it is distracting people from the Epstein files, but beyond that, it's making the country turn against each other, which Trump has multiple times stated that he wants. I also think the theory of Tyler Robinson, whether or not he was a liberal or a Republican, some people think he was a part of this group of white nationalist incels that's ran by Nick Fuentes. Don't know. I've honestly never heard about it before, thankfully. I don't know. Obviously, we don't know enough yet about Tyler Robinson, but I do think the whole Groyper theory makes sense to me. He has that vibe. He's got that incel energy. And also, people are saying oh, his roommate was trans and he's dating a trans girl, but none of that has really been confirmed. And honestly, I've seen Groypers who hate women so much that they date themselves. They date other men but hate gay people. I don't know. It's so confusing. It's honestly a lot of self-hatred there and weird shit. And either way, I don't think it matters, because a crazy person is going to become radicalized by anything. There's extremists on either side, and that's obviously not helping anything. And obviously blaming one party or the other is not helping, obviously. But I want to know your guys' thoughts on this. I've been getting tagged in it a lot. I want to hear what your theories are here and what you think the truth is behind all of this. Again, I definitely think it's possible that something darker here is happening and the government is involved in some way, or that Netanyahu is involved in some way. I don't know. Someone asked Netanyahu about this conspiracy theory and he just said it was insane. So what are you gonna say to that? I don't know. I just think something about this has been freaking me out since it happened and keeping me up at night trying to figure out if there was something more to the story here. And I want to hear your thoughts. All right, the next theory that we're going to be talking about is the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. This is something that genuinely has been keeping me up at night for as long as I can remember. I'm like, where the hell is she? So obviously, we all know on July 12th of 1937, Amelia Earhart was 39 years old. She was the most famous aviator on Earth. And essentially her and Fred Noonan went missing. And nobody knows exactly what happened to their plane or them, but there are a lot of conspiracy theories. And there's one that I genuinely believe, so we'll talk about that. So the island that Amelia was supposed to land on, Howland Island, was literally half a mile wide and less than 2 miles long. Like, this was a tiny island. So I think the most popular conspiracy theory is that when they were trying to land on that island, they crashed and sunk. I think that is pretty popular. Most people believe that that's what happened. I don't, because it just doesn't really add up. And there's some other theories that have just had more research that make honestly a lot more sense. But that's, I would say, overall the most popular one. So one of the other popular theories, this is the theory that I think is true, is that Amelia and Fred landed on Gardner Island. So Gardner Island was about 350 nautical miles southeast of Howland, which was the island they were supposed to land on. And basically this theory says that Amelia and Fred were unable to spot the tiny Howland Island through the morning haze. So they took the line south and ended up reaching Gardner Island, and they only had a few minutes of fuel to spare, so they landed it there. People believed that Amelia landed the plane on top of the island's like coral reef essentially, but there was like a flat reef at low tide, and then people think that the plane ended up getting swept up by the current, and that's why there's like no evidence of that. So let's talk about the evidence here. So 3 months after Amelia Earhart vanished, a British colonial officer named Eric Bevington visited Gardner Island, and he snapped a small photograph of the West Reef, and in that photo you can see that there's like a tiny speck sticking out of the water at the reef's edge. Basically match the components of the landing gear from Amelia and Fred's plane. Also, according to surrounding boats and areas near this island, a lot of people were getting transmissions after July 2nd picked up from a female voice saying things like knee-deep water, and a lot of these claims also said there was like an agitated male in the background, so a lot of people think that these are signals from Amelia Earhart. Not only that, but in 1940, the British colonial officer Gerard Gallagher reported finding partial human bones and a sextant box and remnants of a camp on the island's southeast end. So at this point, people were like, this has to be Amelia Earhart. For one, the sextant box numbers were consistent with the brand and model that Fred Noonan used often. And to add into this, there was a woman's shoe that was found and a man's shoe. And the woman's shoe was the same shoes that Amelia Earhart wore, but it was in a different size. So that's kind of only the confusing part. On this island, they also found a little container of this freckle cream that was popular in the 1930s that Amelia Earhart did use. And the only thing that was wrong here is that the bones ended up belonging to a stocky, short male, which obviously didn't fit Amelia Earhart, but it also didn't fit Fred Noonan. He was tall and lean. But decades later, they reran these original measurements with modern methods and argued that the bones were actually more consistent with a taller than average European woman, which fits Amelia Earhart's profile, which I feel like done deal, she's there. Well, that's where she was. I don't know. In 1991, a panel of a riveted aluminum washed up on this island, and for years it didn't quite fit any known part of Amelia and Fred's plane, but the analyst compared it to a one-off repair patch over a window on Amelia Earhart's plane that was added just before the world flight, and that rivet pattern and dimensions seemed to line up perfectly. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. That's a theory that I personally believe. A lot of other people believe the theory that Amelia and Fred crash landed or landed near the Marshall Islands and basically landed in these Japanese-controlled mandated islands. And a lot of people think that they were taken into custody by the Japanese and were being held hostage, basically. I don't know. There's not much evidence at all to prove that this could be true. But then there's also a theory that they landed in the Marshall Islands. The Japanese took them and held them captive till the end of the war, and then they had to go back home under pseudonyms for some reason. And people believe that this woman named Irene Bolam was in fact Amelia Earhart. Now, she was like, I'm not Amelia Earhart. She actually sued a bunch of different people who were saying that she was Amelia Earhart, so I would say overall that theory kind of not reliable. And then a lot of other people believe that they landed on an island and were eaten alive by coconut crabs, and that's why there is no evidence of their bones. That's terrible way to go. That sounds awful, and I like to not believe that. Personally, I just think the Gardner Island theory has always made the most sense, but this is definitely still something that just runs in my brain some nights. Whenever I think about it, I'm just like, oh my god, what the fuck happened? And why don't we know? Why don't we know? And I get it, the ocean's big. Like, if the plane crash landed in the ocean, it would be very hard to find, but like, I just want some answers, okay? But I want to know what you guys think happened to Amelia Earhart. What theory do you think is the most legit? What do you think actually happened? Let us know. The last thing I want to talk about that genuinely keeps me up at night is the idea of haunted celebrities. I hate this. I hate when people come encounter with any kind of demonic entities, but especially when it's a celeb that I like. I'm like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Are they cursed? Maybe. So for one, people really think that Post Malone is cursed. So there's this conspiracy theory. Essentially in June of 2018, he was featured on Ghost Adventures. He visited a very famous haunted museum in Las Vegas where him and the host of the show, Zach, saw this haunted box that inspired the film The Possession. Now, this box is believed to be the most haunted object in the world. Typically, this box is covered by a protective casing, and you have to be over the age of 18 years old and sign a waiver just to see the box. But since Post Malone is a celebrity, he gets special privileges, which I don't know if you would consider this a privilege. It sounds kind of scary. But he was able to see the box up close and personal. Zach had his hand on the haunted box, and while Zach was touching the box, Post reached out to touch Zach's hand, who then jumped away from the box. Both Zach and Post claim in that moment that when they were touching the box, they saw a dark figure. So people believe, and Post Malone himself, I think, actually believes this as well, that he has been cursed ever since. So Post had a pretty big string of bad luck right after this happened. He said he woke up the next day, he found an unexplained bruise on his arm, and he just thought that was weird. But then in August of 2018, he was flying on his private jet when it was forced to make an emergency landing, and after blowing out one of its tires. But like, the plane couldn't land for a while, and I remember it was really scary, and people on the internet were literally like tracking this private jet and just assumed like he was going to crash and that would be it. But obviously he ended up being okay. And then he got into a car accident just 2 weeks later, and then another few weeks later his house was broken into. And Post Malone himself believes that the string of bad luck was attached to the box. I don't like that. So we've also seen this with Miss Ariana Grande. Now that girl loves Halloween and spooky shit a little too much. She needs to relax, okay? She took it definitely too far in 2013 and became cursed. So Ariana was on tour in Kansas City, and she visited this extremely haunted cemetery called Stull Cemetery, which is apparently so haunted that the literal Pope refused to fly over it. As they got closer to the cemetery, Ariana claimed that she felt an overwhelming sense of negativity, and as they got closer and approached the cemetery, the vibes just got worse and worse. Her whole car began to smell like sulfur, which is apparently a sign of demons. Don't want to know that. Don't like it. I like making eggs. I don't want to make eggs anymore. Ariana and her team got so scared that they actually decided to turn the car around, but first they opened the window and apologized for disturbing the spirit's peace, and then Ariana took a picture. Now, when she looked at the picture, she claimed that there were 3 distinct faces in the picture, and she got so freaked out. She tried to send the picture to her manager at the time, Scooter Braun, but the file wouldn't send, and a message on Ariana's phone flashed the words, "This file can't be sent, it's 666 megabytes. The fuck do you mean by that? No. Ariana kept feeling like she was being followed by the demons because she kept hearing creepy whispers. She was seeing disturbing red shapes anytime she closed her eyes. She kept having sleep paralysis that night where she saw giant black shadow figures in her bed while she was sleeping but couldn't move. My literal nightmare. And she got so scared that she ended up deleting the picture and had her energy cleansed because of how terrified she was. And the last celebrity haunting thing that I want to talk about is Britney Spears and Brittany Murphy. So Britney Spears lived in a mansion at the top of Sunset, and she had a healer come do Reiki on her in that house. And she swears ever since then, the Reiki healer opened some sort of spiritual portal or something, and these spirits had come in and tormenting her. She said said that they tried to push her down the stairs. Crazy things kept happening in the house. It was so bad, and that she left the house to stay at a hotel and never went back again. Literally sold the house with everything in it. But who did she sell it to? Brittany Murphy. Yes. So Brittany Murphy moved into the Rising Glen house, and as you probably know, she sadly passed away in 2009 under mysterious circumstances. And just 5 months later, her husband Simon also passed away under these same mysterious circumstances of pneumonia and anemia. Before her husband passed away, he claimed that she always hated the Rising Glen house. She said that it just felt like the property was unlucky, there was a bad vibe to it, and she wanted to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel basically every night, even though she had a beautiful house on top of Sunset Boulevard. So she just hated it just as much as Britney Spears did. And Britney Spears actually talked about this in recent years on Instagram, and she said, "I saw this online. Is anyone else curious? She died at 32. Just saying. P.S. I know this is from a while ago, but come on, they're still investigating." And I don't know, a lot of people think that the house itself was haunted, but it's been torn down ever since, and who's to say? I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts though, because I hate anything that's paranormal like that. I don't like it. I don't. Anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let us know in the comments below what you guys think of these different conspiracy theories. What are your thoughts on all of them? Let us know. That is it. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.